Question: what is the first computer RPG ever made? Well, that question is actually a bit difficult to answer. In fact, based on the nature of the historical evidences available, it is probably impossible to answer. History is not an exact science giving us an objective view of the past. History is an interpretation of the past based on whatever evidences just so happen to be available to us. As the archaeologist Harald Jacobsen writes, quote, "The past does not exist in itself. It must be created and interpreted based on the sources that have been preserved. This can create a lot of difficulty when trying to reconstruct the past, including the history of video games. We can only base our historical understanding on the evidences that have actually survived to us. And since evidences disappear, we can get a very skewed and inaccurate view of history due to potential evidences not being taken into account. This is very relevant regarding video games, and particularly the history of CRPGs. When the first CRPGs were created, personal computers were largely unavailable for most people, and the idea of printing out the source code for preservational purposes, well, that might not have crossed people's minds yet. Instead, people were reliant on big expensive machines in laboratories and universities. Since most campuses did not allow their machines to be utilized for gaming, any potential video games made on these giant computers would probably get deleted, meaning many historically critical RPGs might simply have become lost to time, without any accurate evidence to actually track them down. We simply do not know, and will probably never know what the first ever CRPG in history was. That being said, this book, Dungeons and Desktops, The History of Computer Role-Playing Games, written by Matt Barton and Shane Stacks, does give us some answers. You see, there is indeed one game which, at least based on the evidences that have survived, might actually hold the title as the first computer RPG ever made. And that game is Pedit 5. So, a bit of history here. Back in 1974, the role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons was finally released to the public. It quickly became a success, especially on American universities, where it came to the attention of students interested in computer programming. This leads us to the computer system called Plato, or Programmed Logic for Automated Teaching Operations. The Plato computer system, originally released back in the 1960s, had by the 1970s become widespread among American universities. Many students having this system available used the opportunity to develop all kinds of different games for it. This leads us to Reginald Rutherford, a programmer who in 1975 decided to try and make an electronic version of Dungeons and Dragons for the Plato system. And he developed the game in just 4 to 6 weeks. His department was named Population and Energy Group, and had reserved the file names Pedit 1 to 5 for the Plato system. However, since they only needed the first 3 of those files, and there were 2 available, Rutherford took the 2 last files for his game. The file Pedit 4 became the game's manual, while the last file, Pedit 5, became the game itself, thus giving us its peculiar name. And here it is in all its rather primitive glory. Pedit 5, perhaps the first computer RPG ever made. Given all the file size issues, the game is obviously, well, very simple. There is no class system at all. Instead, you simply roll out all your stats, with your character just being a generic combination between a fighter and a mage. You can level up a total of 5 times, with the goal of the game simply being to get 20,000 experience points. Interestingly enough, the game actually has lore, which, I guess we might as well read, it's really short. It is the year 666, the year of the beast. Who is this beast? Why is the year significant in the in-game world? Well, it's never explained. In the country of Caer Omn, near the town of Mersad, stands the ruined castle of Ramething, which I guess is supposed to be a play on the words random and something? Beneath the castle lie the terrible dungeon of Ram Thing, an incredible maze of rooms and corridors occupied by horrid monsters and piles of ancient treasure. Then follows a paragraph explaining the basic goal of the game, rounding it all up with saying, quote, "As a well-educated young person, you know how to use the sword and have a certain acquaintance with magical and clerical spells. These capabilities will improve at your experience level." And yeah, that's it. As the description explained, the game takes place in one singular dungeon, which has about 40 to 50 rooms to it apparently. The monsters and treasures within the rooms are randomized every time. Whenever you enter a battle with one of these monsters, you have one of three options. You can either fight them in melee combat, use a magic spell, or simply run for your life. Now, given the game's simplicity, I'm sure a lot of people are curious as to how the combat actually works, and, well, it's just pure RNG. There is no skill involved, like, at all. All you do is just press the attack button, allowing the computer to determine whether you reign supreme or the monster will just, like, kill you in an instance based on a dice roll. The magic system is basically the same thing. You actually get a surprisingly high amount of spells available, including sleep, invisibility, charm, and magic missile, but since it's all just based on RNG mechanics anyway, well, it's not all that interesting. As you can see, the graphics are very primitive, but you could argue that they are still pretty impressive for the time. I mean, in the game Adventure for the Atari 2600, released 5 years later mind you, you don't even have a character sprite. Your in-game character is simply represented by a rectangle. And by the way, yes, this is supposed to be a dragon apparently. At least in Pedit 5, the character and NPC models do slightly resemble what they are supposed to represent. Although even the sprites in this game can get a bit strange at times. Like this enemy I encountered. Looking at it, my first thought was that this is clearly a rat. I mean, it wouldn't be an RPG without a rat encounter at some point, right? However, according to the game itself, it was actually a giant ant? Yeah, sorry game, but that is not a giant ant, okay? There's also, well, no music or sound effect. But to be fair, this was back in like 1975. Although you can just put on your own music and leave it on in the background, I guess. Some of the mechanics of the game are also like a little bit janky. Like whenever you want to enter a room, you actually have to like break the door down every single time. And even after you have broken the door down and you enter the room, you fight the monsters, collect the treasure, you then have to break down the door again just to leave the room. Yeah, it's really weird. As you explore the different rooms of the dungeon, you will collect more and more treasure and amass ever more experience from fighting your enemies. Once you go back to the starting position, your health is replenished and you can cast magic once more. Some might think that this game is easy given the rather simple end goal. However, since everything is based on random number generation, you could actually argue that this is like one of the hardest RPGs ever made. You might do a good run tearing down every villain in your path, only to find that a hobgoblin slaughtered you in an instant because like luck was not on your side. That being said, if you truly want to give this game a go, you can actually do so for free, as the game can be accessed using a Plato emulator. Although Pedit 5 definitely hasn't aged well, I would still recommend trying it out. It is an interesting look into the early days of video games, and so if you're into video game history, you should give it a go. If anything, just to truly appreciate how far we have come in the RPG genre.